Good morning this morning. This is Beauty Business and Banking, and I am Rochelle Hunter Mosley. And today I have my good friend. Everybody's my good friend. You always say, Rochelle, you got a lot of damn friends. Yeah, I do. I have a lot of good friends. I'm here with my friend Billy Council, and I invited him, my father, and my son here so that we could have three generations of men that can hopefully shed some light on any type of political inks or any type of political questions that we have. And I think that a lot of times it stems from us not knowing our history is the reason why a lot of our young people think the way they think, they act the way they act, and they do the things that they do because they don't really understand the history. And I don't think that we really take that. And when I say we, I mean we as a whole. And I'm not also not saying all. I'm just saying us as a whole. We don't take the time out to educate our young people. This is not the time for us to be pointing the finger as to you should think this and you should do this and you should vote this way or that way. This is not the time for us to point the finger. This is the time for us to educate. So that's why I invited Billy, I invited my father here, and I invited my son here because I know my son and my father have a lot of conversation, a lot of political conversations, and I just wanted to share it so that our young people can be on the same page and understand why we're so passionate about what we're so passionate about, right? So, Billy, I don't like to mess up people's titles. So, let the people know who you are and what you do.
Oh, my name is Billy Council from Harlem. I'm a former candidate for City Council in District 9 in New York City.
Thank you. And Chance, what are you doing these days? Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Chance. I'm sound engineering, producing, executive producing, music, and it's out here just working, just doing my best.
Okay, love that. Daddy, can you give us some history about you?
Yeah, I'm retired Air Force. Spent 26 years in the Air Force. I actually worked on airplanes. I was a hydraulic technician in while I served in the Air Force. I got out of the Air Force and worked 13 years in juvenile justice here in Florida. Uh, uh, when I finished that stint, I retired and did a lot of interesting part-time jobs that I did working with a job agency, and took me. I've learned a lot about corporate America, how people get hired, get fired, get pushed out, all those things down those lines. And right now, I try to stay retired and play golf, but I wind up helping my other daughter Z with her business as far as putting up their signs and stuff that keeps me a little busy. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
Okay. Okay. I love it. So Billy, I when I invited you here, you sent me a whole line of things that I needed to read, and I actually printed it out too. And I felt like, and I know a lot of us feel the same way. I felt like, am I smarter than the fifth grader? Because it's we learn a lot about the government and the way systems work and the way things work. But I think that as an adult in my 50s, it was a lot of things that I felt like I forgot. Things that was taught to me. So I felt like when I talked to you and I told you from the beginning, I wanted us to start from the beginning. The branches of government and how these branches work and who's in charge of what. Because everybody really thinks that it's just the president.
Yeah. Well, the president is a small piece to it, right? Even though he's the executive in chief in charge, but he is a small piece to it, right? So as we know, we got three branches of government, right? Which is the executive branch, legislation branch, and then there's also the judicial branch, right? And then you got different levels of government, right? So you have the state, the federal, and the local level, right? So for a lot of us, we forget that the local level is probably the most important one because that's the one that affects us daily, right? That's the one that basically help us run our city or our state, right?
Okay.
And those local officials are the ones who also help with the laws and help propose the laws and help get the laws signed, right? And then it goes up, right? So eventually the president signs it once it passed Congress, once it passed the state, the House of Representatives. That's when the president signs it, right? So not saying that the president's not important. Of course he's important, but I think one of the things that we have to start realizing that we have to really get involved with our local elections, right? Because those are the ones that govern us every day.
Okay,
Right.
so when you say local elections, let's
Right.
break it all the way down.
So when you say local elections, you're talking about your judges in your
Okay.
community, right? You're talking about your city council. You're talking about your assembly person. You're talking about your district attorneys, right? Those are basically your levels here in New York City, right? So say New York City, you have a borough president who's
Okay.
in charge of the whole borough, right? Then you have your district attorney. In New York City, we have 5 boroughs, so there is 5 different district attorneys for each borough.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
and then you have your city council, right? So in New York City, and I'm gonna keep referencing New York City because that's
Right,
where
'cause
that's where I'm
that's where
from
we
and that's
are.
what we represent, right? So there's 51 city council members, and those 51 city council members represent every district in New York City.
Okay.
Right. So let's just say, for example, you have a business in District 9 in New York City, right?
Okay.
One of the largest small areas in New York City is Harlem, right? So you have a city council person there, right? Then you also have someone who represents you in the assembly, right? And that's on the state level.
Okay.
Right. So there's so many different levels that we really have to start breaking down, right? Because even also we have individuals who represent certain counties, right? And and there's judges that represent your county also, right? So those are so many local level officials that we have to start taking into consideration.
Okay. Okay. And I know that. Did you know that, Chance? Did you know that?
No, I didn't. No,
Right.
I just
Okay.
asked that.
And that was the reason. That was one of the reasons why I felt like we needed this because, and we needed to break it down because we did learn these things years and years and years ago. But are we going back and refreshing our memory on the things that we need to know in terms of how this government is run? Right. So, Chance, you had some we've had some interesting conversation about how you felt about how you, how I want to put this. Um, I think you told me, you said, I don't want to just vote for somebody just because they're black. This was even at the time when Obama was running. It's like I don't want to be rushed into, and I don't want to feel like I'm gonna vote for this person just because he's black, right? Um, let me hear some of your views on that. Like how did you like what was that real feeling you were having?
I mean, we live in a social media era, so the government knows that social media controls a lot of our minds. So they put out things that may be misinformation or may not be the full truth, and you just have to do your own research. And I just feel like the people that I see on social media, there's no real fact checking in the information that's being spewed. Just about like the Kamala Harris and how many people she jailed off the marijuana, and you know what I'm saying. I was misinformed about that, but once I took some time out to do my research, and this whole time Instagram has been giving me wrong information, and I
So
was
what
running
did you
with that.
what did you come up with? What was the fact?
Well, the fact was, when they said that she imprisoned about like 1,500 men for like serious weed crimes or something like that, but the number was like only like 45 men that actually served real time off those weed convictions.
Right.
But what's interesting about that, is one of the things that I always tell young people is to open up your mind to the possibility
Yeah.
that things are not right or things are not wrong,
Right.
And when we look at the whole Kamala Harris thing, we look at it from a perspective of not knowing,
Yeah.
right? So when we sit there and say, she was a district attorney, right? you got to remember, she doesn't really prosecute those individuals, right? So she is over the office.
Right.
So she's the district attorney for that office. And then you have ADAs, which is called Assistant District Attorneys. They are the ones who are prosecuting that. But what they say is this is from Kamala
her,
Harris, but it's not. It's her office.
office,
And then we also got to realize that she's there to do a job, just like all of us, right? So we break a law, then there's consequences behind that law. Whether it's a black man, whether it's an Asian man, a white man, a Hispanic man, you know, that's how the system is governed, right? That we prosecute those who break the law, right? So we can't sit there and say because she's a black woman that she shouldn't prosecute, her office shouldn't prosecute men of color because she's a woman of color. That is not fair to her, and that is not fair to our democracy.
Dad, what's your history behind incarcerating black men? Like, what has been the rumor in your history in terms of why black men are going to jail?
Well, for me, the dealings that I've had with people, they always want to blame somebody else for it. They always want to blame the system for their bad behavior, and plus, the perfect question that you just asked is this, and like what we talk about now, is education, because the majority of the kids that I dealt with, it was always an education problem. It was always an education problem. Yeah, I was getting kids that really couldn't read, couldn't count, kids that I'm talking about even high school kids. I'm getting that couldn't read, but he was the best football player in the state. You see what I'm saying? Because he had got pushed along, and because of size. And that's another thing, when you're talking about the system, like Chance is talking about, when you talk about the system, everybody got to learn the system. And I mean, even if you want to be a criminal, you got to learn the system. Anyway, as to how the system is going to affect you.
Right.
And because it seems like people get locked up, then they surprised they got locked up.
Right.
And so that's where the bottom line is the education to the system and education, period.
Right. And I think that's my thing, and the reason why I wanted to bring, share some light on this platform is because acting like you don't know is the absolute worst thing in the world. That's how you really get in trouble, because you're acting like you don't know. And just like you said, I think Chance said, you used marijuana, locking black men up because they was marijuana charges or whatever, and then you use marijuana then crime. But at that time, was it a crime? At that time, it was a crime.
At that time, it was.
Right. So to Billy's point, it's like I do feel like when we see a brother or a sister, we expect the pass.
Right.
We expect the pass. And I do feel like it's very unfair. It's very unfair. Just me being your mother and you get in trouble and you really, really did something. Am I gonna rock with you and try to help? Absolutely. But you don't deserve a pass from me because you're my son and you did something wrong.
Right. Now, Ro, I tell you, okay, the other part to this is that, okay, like what we're talking about now, we're talking about the ones that got locked up and the ones that went to court or whatever. But it may be a number of 1,500, right? But the number probably was even bigger because a lot of them didn't have to be prosecuted because of the office doing their research in the case to find out that maybe it didn't happen that way. Because the number could have been 2,500 or more that may have gotten arrested, right, but not booked. not booked, or charges dropped.
Right. Right.
You
Okay.
know, so yeah, it's a, you know, just like Billy was talking about, it's the office that's doing it. But the question is, like you said, what did the law say?
Right.
What did the law say? And that's the bottom line for all of us. What
Right.
did the law say? At that time, what's the law?
But here is the other piece to that, what people don't fail to realize, right? We always look at we always look at what she did, but we never look at what a person didn't do. I mean, what a person did do, but not saying the remedy, right? So she also passed a law where she started to, instead of prosecuting these individuals, alternatives. She gave them alternative programs that she started that helped them not go back to prison or not
Right.
do that, right? So it's a give and take, right? So yeah.
So how important is voting, Billy? Like how important is it
The
to vote or not to vote?
voting is important no matter how you put it. If you don't vote, you basically, taking away your freedom, right? That's the way I say it, right? And one of the things we talked about is being as transparent as possible, right? We have ancestors who fought for liberty for us to vote. We have our ancestors who died, right? Who were killed just for us to have the vote, just to have the opportunity to vote, right? And to help govern this country, right? So voting to me, it's like the opportunity to have water, right? You go to a restaurant and everybody give you, whether it's tap water, they give you water, right? Voting is that same process because it gives you the liberty to voice your opinion on something, right? So I try to emphasize voting is like someone telling you you don't have the freedom to speak. You can't speak your mind and you can't speak your opinion, right? That was one of the reasons why we voted, right? So we can have a say so. So we can be able to look at someone and say, no, this is what I believe, right? So I think, the nut and bolts to it is like vote is basically saving your life.
And Daddy, what do you say? Not voting is still a vote.
Yeah, it's still a vote. It's still a vote. If you don't vote, it's still a vote. And you literally, in a lot of cases, by not voting, you're not voting against your interests anyway. Because if the guy that wins or woman that wins is against what's for you or benefits you, you did it. You did it because you didn't vote. And the other thing is young people today, compared to me, I'm 71, right? Chance has no idea what, those things I went through, you see, or faced or had to deal with as far as racism go, right? And just like what you do for him, what I do for him, and have done for him is so he don't have to feel that.
Right.
See? But things like voting or what you're voting for, whatever, it's the further you get away from the pain, you don't feel the pain and you don't remember the pain. You see what I'm saying? So the older people feel the pain. They were in the pain. You follow me? So that's where the conversations gotta take place. You gotta take place. We gotta be listening on both sides of this thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I know what conversation that we were having earlier, Billy, and you said that you was telling me about who ended slavery.
Right. Right. So, so when you think about it, right? When you think about it, right? So let me just look at it this way, right? Most men, women of color, we were taught to vote. We were told to vote down a Democratic line.
Right.
Right? This was like for my grandmother. Oh, you just go vote Democrat, straight down the line.
Straight down. Don't even look at nothing.
Don't look at nothing else, right? Not saying, and to me that was bad, right? Because at that time we were started to be conditioned to do one thing.
Right.
right? So now we just stayed on the left side, right? Most of us who entrepreneurs who are in that high 1% or 3% of financial income, we may live, we may vote Democratic, but we live Republican. Right? So we start thinking about those lines, we start like not really being informed on policy driven.
Right. So let's unpack that. What does it mean to be a Republican? And what does it mean to be a Democrat? Like when you say that we vote Democrat, but we live Republican. Because my homegirl, my best friend, she said, Ro, I don't know. Because she is in a different income bracket. And I know this thing, it sounds like this thing is about money.
Well, when you look at it holistically, it is about money.
Okay.
Right? When you look at it, it's about money, right? And I'm just simple stuff. Democrats want to share the taxes, right? And Republicans don't. Like, this is what I believe in. I'm working hard. I should pay this. While Democrats are saying, no, we all pool in together. So it's like the Democrats is a larger group, want it. The Republicans, smaller group. Right? So that's sort of the difference, right? And that's the major difference, right? So when we talked about the slavery piece, Abraham Lincoln was what? What president was he? You remember? It's like the first president, right? He was a Republican. When you talk about abolishing slavery, it came from the Republican side.
Okay.
Right? So, there are so many different disparities that we have, this myth that we have about Republicans and Democrats, right?
Wait, you said he was the first Republican
Yes.
president?
Yes.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when we look at it from that perspective, it's like, okay, they wanted to abolish slavery.
Yeah.
Right? So, there are so many things that you look at. I think what's happening, we start looking at Republicans as good and Democrats as bad. Because some of us, they don't align with our views. And that's okay. Rochelle, that's okay that we don't all have the same views. We're not supposed to. But I think what we're doing is wrong in our community, in our culture. We're deciding based on money and not morals and not the humanality of what it needs to be a human, right? So when we start talking about this presidency, it's not about Republicans and Democrats, right? It's not about, if you think about it, we're not really talking about agendas, right? We're kind of like starting to make this presidential race about race and about sexuality. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
Right? And that's where we got to start saying, okay, does Vice President Harris speaks for me or does Trump speak to me? And if Trump speaks to me, what does he speak to me for? What does Harris speak to me for?
Right.
Right. So let's start unpacking that stuff. Right. And let's move away from the Democrat and the Republicans. Right. Because when you look at it, it's now looking like love against hate.
Right.
Right. So now when Michelle Obama said, when they go high, we go low. Now it's like it's a dogfight. It's like, oh, Joe Biden, it's very malmanaged and being respectful. And Trump is like, nah, like, it's becoming a war between two different thoughts of how our government should be ran.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right. It does make sense. So when we're talking about how what these like Michelle Obama said, she was saying, okay, y'all go high, we go low, right? And then when Trump says, make America great again, what other type of way are Black people supposed to take that? Because when was it great?
Right.
For Black people. So because if you saying again, that means it once was.
But you got to think about it. You got to think about a migrant person of color who comes to the United States. They rise up from nothing to have everything.
Right.
Whatever reason. Guess what that means to them? America is great. America may not have been great to some of the African Americans that lived here,
Right.
but to other people, it may have, right? So I don't like the saying, right? But I'm also a person that looks on the other side what other people may think, right? So it's not trying to denounce them, but it's to understand why do they think that we need to make America great. When was it ever great? When was it ever bad to certain people?
Right.
Right. And I'm not a person to believe, like your son said, I'm not a person to believe that we need to vote for someone because of a color or a race. I believe we need to vote for someone who agenda lines up to our agenda and the things that is going to make me and my family successful.
Right.
Right. And how I'm going to be able to survive and continue to educate and continue to teach, right? Because when you look at it, some people would say the best mayor that we had in New York City probably was Bloomberg. He was a Republican, right? So
Yeah.
you can look at it a little bit different, and somebody can say that David Deakins wasn't, and he was an African American Democrat.
Right.
Right? So we have so many different thoughts and like crazy assumptions of why this person is good and why this person is bad. But we never really sit down and say, you know what really happened in that administration?
My name is Rochelle Hunter Mosley. I'm the owner of Salon 804, and I've been a stylist for over 30 years. And I've had my hair blonde for over 20 years. But what I've noticed about the products that I use on my hair was blue, my hair is green, my hair is brown. So I had to develop my own product, the Nancy Foam. The Nancy Foam is purple so that it will help with the rays of the sun and my hair won't turn yellow. Fantastic. I have no problem with green, blues, browns, or anything. My hair is always beautifully blonde. My Nancy Foam is everything. If you're interested in buying the Nancy Foam, you can get it at RochelleMosley.com or follow me on Instagram at Rochelle H. Mosley. Right. Because that's what's really passed down. We were talking about that earlier as well when we were saying that, these kids are thinking that when Trump was in office, that Trump was the reason why they were making money.
And I always say, now, do you agree with that?
I mean, when I was in stocks and crypto, when he was president, it was a very great time. So I don't know. I have to do my research on why that was and why it's different now to really, to use that as an excuse. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because during this, it was a great time for.
But now you know all of that stuff is regulatory by a whole.
Yes. Now
you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
and
the
so
government
now
got a hold of it. Yeah.
we start realizing some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's really important. Right. So it's really not. So the thing is, let's just say when Obama was in office, right? Where were you at that moment?
I was in high school.
High school, right? So now, when you didn't really have to worry about making money, you didn't really have to worry about paying anything, right? The first thing that you do is go to mom, right? So you were sheltered until you got to that age where, you know what, you had to pay taxes on something, or you got a W-9 because you're in music, or whatever it is. And now you're like, oh my God, all of these taxes is coming out. But you were not educated on that tax process. Right? So now it's like, oh man, now Trump is in office. Right? Now I got to pay these taxes. Right? Oh, now that money that I'm making from crypto is being taxed. Right? And oh no, but that wasn't the reason. That's not a reason why you should vote for a certain person. Right? So now when we start thinking about, this upcoming election, right? What I want you to do is look at the pros and the cons, right? And I'm just going to give you 3 facts. One fact, you talk about the Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court, right? That's the highest court of the land, right? It's broke up of 9 judges. Some on the left wing and some on the right wing. How do you know what's left and right? Usually L is Republican. I mean, L is Democrat, and R stands for right, stands for Republican.
Okay.
So that's when you know, right? So now you have these judges that is a lifetime appointed position, right? So you can go into, I'm just making an example. You can go in there at 20, and you can stay there until you're 97 years old and die, right? That's the only way you can be removed from there. So at this point, our next president has the opportunity to appoint 3, right? Because as you look at some of the older ones, like Clarence Thomas, they like in their 80s, 70s, going into their 80s. So he's going to be able, right? So Trump may do, what he will do is he will appoint 3 judges that is in their early 40s, right? So now what we would say, oh, he's putting a plant on the Supreme Court. So now it's gonna shift, right? Because he already put 2 there, right?
And you add another 3.
So you add another 3, that's 5
Out of 9.
out of 9. So now who shifts the balance, right? Now the second thing is we already had him. What he said was, I am going to give immunity. Now, as a black man, this is where it gets dicey for me. As a black man, as we know, how many black men have been killed by officers, and one, they were prosecuted, they were arrested, but no one was convicted, right? Maybe but the one who killed George Floyd, right? One, and I'm making up numbers, so don't question me. 1 out of 40, right? So what he's saying is, you know what? I'm going to give officers full immunity. If they kill someone or if they shoot another black man or black woman, they won't even be tried.
Yeah.
So now think about it.
That as well.
That's you.
Very dangerous.
That's you. That's me. That is your daughter. That is your mother. And that is your grandfather. The third thing, do you love your grandfather?
Absolutely.
Is your grandfather retired?
Yes.
So Trump said, you know what? Let's take away Social Security.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How is he going to survive?
Yeah.
Your mother is not your mother or your aunt is not in that 1%.
Right.
And in that 1%, they're not going to be able to take care of your father, because you know what? Your mother still got to take care of herself, and she got to take care of you and your sister. Right. So now we see where that balance shifts that, right? Yep. So those are the 3 things that I want you to think about. Yep. And here's the last one. Here's a bonus. Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
Women rights.
Yeah.
So he's telling us that he wants to take that away.
Right.
So your sister and your mother have no really legal rights over their body.
Right. And they're not protected.
They're not protected.
Physically, they could be physically harmed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's one thing that I'm going to tell you, if your grandfather can contest to this. Malcolm X said the most unprotected species on this world is what?
Black women.
A black woman. So this race is not, so it's not about black and white. People can say Kamala is not black. She's a woman of color. So any way that you want to throw those dice, you got to throw those dice, and you got to realize that that person is fighting for your mother.
Right.
And when I say they, I mean not black people. They said a long time ago, anything mixed with black is black. But today, only when it's convenient for them. Because how you going to say that Obama is because he has a white parent, and Kamala because she has a white parent, that she's not black? But at first y'all said anything mixed with black is black. That's what y'all said.
But Obama went through the same thing as well.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I get it. Yeah. It's stupid. That's what I'm trying to say. Like it's stupid. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, he went through that, right? But during that time, it was holding weight.
Mm-hmm.
It was holding weight. See, it created enough confusion, argument and everything, and some people just bid on that he was lying.
Yeah. That
Obama was lying about his own self. So those are things that we got to look at. And just like what I heard, what was being said about the money thing, right? And we talk about Abraham Lincoln, right? Now, really think about this now. Okay, the Revolutionary War we had, right? What was it about?
What was it about?
What was it about? Yeah. Now, we all think it was about slavery, but it was about money, just like what y'all are talking about. Freeing the slaves got rid of free labor. This country was built on free labor.
Right.
So it wasn't, that's what the fight was about, because even people in the North was against freeing slaves.
Mm.
Okay, as well, because they had slaves working in factories up here, you know, as well. So you got to look at the whole thing. Thing is, I learned this a long time ago. You got a question about something, especially government stuff or whatever. Follow the money. Follow the money.
Follow the
Follow the
money.
money. Yeah. Okay, who's making money off of this decision? Who will make that money? Right? Now, when just like Billy had, said, when you're talking about the 1%, right, and taxes and all of that, right? The 1% got money to take care of themselves, right? They got money to take care of themselves, but when we talk about uniting everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like having a potluck. Everybody got to bring something. You can't just come and eat. You got to bring something to that table. But and if you're going to do it fairly, you got to do it fairly based on what you're making. Because I mean that's what the church do. What they say the Bible said. The Bible said 10%. Period. Right.
10% on everybody, not
Yeah,
just
on
one
everybody.
side.
Right. Exactly. So it's 10% of what you got. That's what that is. So that's fair. That's fair, But yes, the 1%ers, sinners, and like what Trump would do, he was giving them write-offs.
Yep.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because percentage wise, sometimes I'm paying my percentage is basically more than what a 1% percentage is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? That don't make no sense. That's not when you keep talking about how free we are. Okay, and like the other thing we talk about. Billy brought up the fact that people of color um, coming in and able to build businesses and everything and grow, right? And to me, the mistake I hear a lot of times is we try to compare them to us or make them us, but they ain't us, and they ain't us because number one, in the thinking, and it still happens now, okay? And they got benefits, they got help, and all this other stuff because they weren't us. If a foreigner, I don't care what color that foreigner is, come to town, come here, he's treated differently. Great. because the thing that's sort of bred out there in almost everybody, okay? If you're black, you got slavery in your background. People don't say it. But just like what we were talking about if you're from India, you're treated different. Mm-hmm. You bottom line treated different. All these corner stores y'all got up there. Look who's in them. Mm-hmm. Okay, look who's in them. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so when you look at how they got started, they had help getting started.
Right.
We had help getting started. Okay, over the years, we had to create coalitions to help us get the money to do something.
Yeah.
Right? Housing and all that. Okay. And the other thing is that you got to understand, a lot of white people are being told a lie, just like we being told a lie, because you got white people that say on our level that's being told that they can't have this because we took it. You follow me? Mm-hmm. See, they're pitting us against us, but we're all in the same bucket. We're all in the same bucket, and a lot of stuff I'm hearing, people are getting convinced that okay, if they vote for something that say hurt us or take from us, they think it don't affect them. right? Because I mean, and Billy can back me up, is that when they write a law, they don't write a black law or white law.
They write it all.
They just write the law.
they write a law. Exactly, and just medical. Overseas, they got free medical, right? We don't have free medical because the plan was that we wouldn't be able to afford medical and we would die off in at least 2 generations. That's what that was. That was the part of the plan. But we didn't. But we didn't. And guess what? Everybody in the country is in that boat. Black or white, everybody's in that boat. But that's what that was supposed to be. Housing, same thing happened with housing. People that came out of the military were supposed to have the GI Bill to be able to use that to help buy a house or whatever, right? Black folk couldn't get it. Black folk couldn't get it.
Yeah.
See? So it's and the last thing I'm gonna say on that is this: when we're talking about now, to me, today, now what Billy said about the Republicans and the Democrats, to me, is partly true, because I mean, our country and everything operates on seasons, right? Now we went through the season. You know, you go back to Obama and back. We went through a season where that thinking applied. You know, choose wisely between Democrat and Republican, right? But we're in another season now. Right? Because you got to look at overall what's happening. Because like Ro brought up about the 2025, you let Trump get in there, because that's what they're waiting on, is for Trump to get in there to implement 2025.
Right. Right.
You know, and now, to me, it's still a lot of things. You ain't got to look at no broad agenda. You got to look at the one that's gonna hurt you.
Right. And that's what I tell people.
And just like Billy said,
even when we having conversations in the shops, I'm having a conversation with my kids too. Just look up the part, even if you just do your due diligence on looking up the part that's going to just affect you. Let's not think about nobody else. That's what is going to affect you directly in making this decision.
It's interesting when we talk about Project 2025. Project 25 is 941 pages.
Yes, it is.
Right? So
who took the time to write that?
Right. So it's for an organization called who
took that time out?
It's from an organization called the Heritage Foundation.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, the Heritage Foundation. But when you look at that PDF, as a PDF file, and I'll send it to your mom so you can look at it, there are so many things in there that it's not for us at all. Like, you know, where, for example, that's right. So for example, you know, and please make me right, because I know I'm gonna say this wrong, but when your grandfather was growing up, there was something that they was called a draft, right? Where you are drafted into the military. In Project 25, what they want to do is they want to have public schools, right? Students take that test to go into the service, right? They don't want to do it in private. They can't do it in private school because it's not governed by the financial institutions of the state, right? So there are so many things we got to look at, right? And that's just one that a lot of people are probably not realizing, right? You know, so we have to really start looking at the things that's going to work for you, right? And I'm one of the guys that when I ran for city council, and my position was, you know, to try to educate everyone, right? Because there may be certain things that I was talking about that was important to me, that was important to certain individuals that I spoke to, but then there was another side of people that I didn't get a chance to speak to, who didn't touch my views because my views was not appointed to them. Right. So that's something that, for my young people, let's move away from money, because there's one thing that I know about my young people that's resilient like y'all gonna always try to figure out how to make some money. Right. But you got to figure out, is that money you're making, does it mean more to you than your freedom? Right? You know what I mean? Because that's what's at stake here. It's not your money. It's your freedom. And if you lose your freedom, you lose your what? You lose your money.
Yeah.
So
it's
like, wait, hold on. Let's see if we can keep our freedom.
Yeah. And also, I think that we need to keep in our minds that when these things are happening now, this is something that they planned 20 years ago. They didn't just plan this yesterday. Even all the gentrification that's going on in Harlem right now, they didn't plan that 2 years ago. That's been planned 10, 15, 20 years ago, that Harlem was going to go under this type of reconstruction. It's not just yesterday. So when you're benefiting from things, you're benefiting from what people did a long time ago, not from what we did just now.
Prime example, look how this works. When your grandfather was probably 15, he probably didn't have no rights at all to vote. So he fought. They got the right to give to us. And now what we got to pass down on is to your generation, and what you got to pass on down is to the next generation. So things may not affect you today, but 15 years later, when you have a child and your child can't do certain things, you're going to be like, dog, I remember this conversation with my grandfather and my mom's about what was going to happen if this man gets in office.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You're going to be looking at that 2025 totally different. Like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe that this is actually happening. And that's another thing. Well, we can't come to the table acting like we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Now, another thing I'm gonna throw in, because Ro brought up some stats, right? Okay, that's like the abortion thing that we were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's based on stats. They did a study a while back, right? That black people and brown people will go outnumber white people, right? This whole abortion thing is all about stopping white people, white women from having abortions.
Yeah. Right.
Because just like I told you earlier, a lot of these things that they want to take from somebody affects everybody. Right? And that's what done happened with this abortion thing.
But because Dad, if you look at, think that what happened, like, little confusion be there is like, just because you just so happen to benefit from it, don't mean that it was for you. You just so happen to benefit from it. You got lucky when it wasn't even for you. And then think about this, Chance. Once they see that, oh, black people have been benefiting from this way too much. Now we gotta figure out and how to change this thing. Yeah. That's why it's in, like Billy said, in 2025, they got in there saying that if you in Richmond Public School, I'm saying Richmond Public because I'm from there. I said Richmond Public, Richmond Public School. Public school people will have to take this test, but not private school people. I don't have a whole lot of friends that their kids went to private school. I don't. I didn't experience private school until Charlie went to grade school. I always thought that because I mean, black people didn't talk about private school. So I didn't even think that I could even afford private school. That's why I didn't even look into it for you. I decided to move into a community that had a better school district that just so happened to be around white people.
Right. And then you got to remember, and this is where it goes back to your local election. Now we go take it back down, right? Mm-hmm. Your local election, right? That's where your mother pays the taxes for that community that she lives in, and that's how that school gets money, right? Right. So those are the things that become important, right? Like I'm a big advocate of, and just because I'm in, local politics, I'm a big advocate of that. Because to me, the president, it doesn't affect me, right? It doesn't affect me. What affects me is my local laws, right? My local budgets that come through, right? The local contracts that come through, right? Those are the things that, really affects us. And I'm not saying the presidency doesn't, but and here's the interesting piece to it. We put in so much emphasis on this presidential election, right? But if we don't go back the next year and vote for Congress, vote for Senate, we're gonna lose the House and we're gonna lose the Senate. Now it's really unbalanced, right?
Right. Yeah. And now that right there, the way I explained it to Chance, right, which is took it down to the level I know he understands, right? In sports, you have a head coach, right? So in government, that's the president, right? But now, I don't care if it's Nick Saban, Belichick, or whoever it is, right? If he ain't got the right assistant coaches, because the assistant coach is the ones that is teaching everybody, right? Because Saban can't run a fly. He can't run straight down the field, in so many seconds. You know what I'm saying? These guys are being coached. So just like Billy said, everything under the president is important.
Right.
Those are the assistant coaches. Those are the assistant coaches. So if he ain't got a team, because I mean, okay, look at it right now. Okay, the border crisis, for example, right? They have a bill sitting on the table that everybody wrote, put into it, put their input in it, and agreed on it 100%.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Trump says, no, don't sign it. But yet the border's a problem, and it's supposed to be Biden's problem, and nothing Biden can do because he got a bill that all they gotta do is sign it, and he'll sign it, and then we can move on with some changes. But you see what I'm saying?
Right.
How you got to understand what's really going on, right? And the reason Trump said not to sign it, because he wants to run on it.
Right.
He want to run on the border problem. He said that. I'm not saying it. He said that. He wants to run on the border problem. So you got to look at all of that. Also, like last time, Trump ran on getting rid of Obamacare. The last time he ran on that, right? We ain't seen nothing. We ain't seen nothing that they presented. They stopped talking about it and everything.
His ego.
You see what I'm saying?
It's his ego for me, because when I had the conversation with you and you said and you was telling me the reason why our stimulus checks was backed up, the reason why they came so late, and I was like, they came so late because he wanted his signature on the check. Really? Yeah. Like what type of
You know what?
BS is?
But guess what?
that?
But guess what? Here's an interesting piece to it.
Right.
When people said that Trump gave us money, right?
Right.
That's what he ran on, because what was on that check?
His signature.
His signature.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the bad thing is, I mean, think about it. Think about it.
Fake out.
The checks, right? The checks were already written, and he said, "Oh, hold up." They had to reprint them. That's why it took so long. They had to reprint them, everything all over again with his signature on it.
And that's the first thing. And that's the first thing when everybody's saying, "Oh, I got money when Trump was here." Oh, why? Because Trump paid. So now you got to think about it. So when we think about it holistically, whether it's the truth or whether it's the lie, right? Let's look at this man for what it is.
Okay.
Right? Let's look at it for what it is.
Okay.
When he debates, he doesn't debate facts. He doesn't debate. What he does, he throws a childish rant.
Right.
Start calling people names. Right? The second thing that he does is never really says anything truthful. right? He just says things that he feels people will get riled up for.
Right.
The third thing is Trump says things that the right wing individuals will not say because they are afraid of their backlash, but Trump is not.
Right.
Right? And again, we as a community starts to become divided, right? Because some of us, wherever you really think about it, for some of us, like I'm voting for Trump and this and that. No, some of them still have issues with women being in charge. Let's call it for what it is, right? Some don't have the education and don't even know why they're really supporting someone, right? And the other piece to it is they don't really care. It's just for conversation piece. And I think when we have conversation piece, we have conversation piece based on just to fill the room with air, right? Instead of filling it with the truth or being honest, like I really don't know. I'm really not educated on that.
Right.
I really want to be informed because we feel that that's not, as men, we feel that that's not, oh, we know everything.
Right.
No, it's okay to say we don't.
We don't know. And that was one of that's the main reason why I wanted to have you here, because I'm going through stuff and looking up stuff on the internet, and
And it's funny because like when
am I smarter than a fifth grader? Like I know this stuff.
I was sitting
I know the branches of the government. Why am I?
Right, but see, that's where we get stuck. And I'm gonna give you another piece, right? Let's talk about the DA. Let's talk about and let's be real. We talk about the system is not built for us, which is not. I'm gonna say it's not. But how much do we support that it's not? For example, well, sure, how many times you got a jury duty notice?
Oh, at least 5 times.
How many times you went?
I went,
Right?
but I didn't serve.
Right. But now, do you know anyone who's like, okay, I got to figure out a way to get out of jury duty? Right. Me too. Right. At one point. Right. But now when you think about it, so now you got a brother who's wrongly arrested. Right. And there's a possibility that we may get on that trial. And then we're like, nah, like we know that's not right.
Right.
And we vote against that. But when we don't do that, we give up our right to serve. So now when he say his peers, yeah, his peers don't look nothing like us. And it's like, oh, he's wrong anyway. Right? So now we have to start taking accountability to be civically engaged.
So you're saying that I need to do jury duty. I need to do it. I need to take it more serious.
We need to take it more serious.
Take it more serious.
Right? Because there may be times you can do it, right? You got something going up and you got to, but when you get it,
when you can do it.
I got a whole week off. I'm gonna sit in the house and watch Love and Hip Hop all week.
I feel you.
Right? So we gotta start being being civically engaged more important.
Okay.
Right? We got to start going to our local community board meetings, our precinct council meetings, our city council meetings, right? Our district meetings, right? We got to start saying, okay, let us take our community in control. So now when we start talking about Harlem, I'm 75% right about the gentrification and all that other stuff. But then here's on the other side is we didn't find ourselves educated. Right. We didn't find ourselves trying to figure out like, how can I get this?
Exactly.
How can I do this? Right. Exactly. So when we talked about, somebody came to me the other day and was like, oh, I'm voting for Trump. My restaurant was making more money. So I was like, yeah, when I had my restaurant, yeah, but Trump don't have nothing to do with you getting your liquor license. Trump has nothing to do with your liquor license. That is your local community board that helps you get your liquor license so you can open up your business.
Right.
Right. So now it's like, now let's start looking at, okay, what really affects me as a business owner, whether I'm Black, white, Asian, Puerto Rican, whatever. How does my local government help me with grants and, with money that comes through the city to give us money to pay agencies so we can, in front of your mom's shop, the sanitation department can come and clean up.
Right.
That's something that affects you every day, right? The other thing that affects you is what happens with the local school board, how much money is given down to the school, right? So you got your controller, right, who controls all the money in New York City, right? So those are the things that sometimes we kind of like is not important. So everybody sit there and probably 8 out of 10, you ask any of your friends, who's your city council person? Who's your assembly person? Who's your district judge? No one would know, right? But you ask them, you know, who's running for president at Nike, you know, most of all the young people will know.
Right.
Right. So these are just some of the things that I just try to tell us is like, yo, let's just have these 101 classes on civic engagement.
Right.
Right.
I agree.
And you know what? I'll throw in this real quick. And just like what he said, the things that affect you locally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Parking.
Right.
Parking. You see what I'm saying? Where you get a ticket at, where you don't get a ticket at, and how much parking is available.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are we doing about that? What's that process going to look like? But you're still building, but things like that.
Well, I'm gonna say I promise that I'm gonna do my due diligence. I'm gonna find out who my controller is, who my council person is, who all my people, all my local people. Because I'm just to be transparent, I'm not as involved as I should be. I probably did not go out to the polls and vote how I should have voted. I do wait for the presidency. When I was still registered in Virginia, I would drive to Virginia to vote for the president, but I didn't drive to Virginia to see who my aunt needed in her community, who she needed, who her local people that she needed in her area. No, I didn't do that. So I said, I promise that I will do my due diligence, and I'll do my duty to also educate. Right.
And this is how we teach, and because of that, this is how we pass information down. Right. Because now with our younger generation, everything is at their fingertips.
Right.
Right. They can Google certain stuff, and people don't realize. Like even Rochelle, you probably don't realize when they send a census to the census to your shop, you probably don't fill it out. Right. But the census, people don't realize how important that is. Because that's how you get the money into your community. So when we don't fill it out, it's just like, oh, Harlem, they only need $3 million. Where and then just say another district like District 7, oh, they getting $70 million.
Right.
Because people are filling it out. Right. So, yeah.
Okay, so this has been a great talk, and thank you for coming, Billy. Thank you for coming, Daddy, and Chance. I love you definitely. I just wanted to just have one little part that we say, and I just want everybody to be clear. When you say that we're gonna, if we lose the House, what do you mean? What's the House?
So the House of Representatives is brought 435 members.
Okay.
Right, so
435 members. That's that big where they like all sit in the and they have like their own little...
So it's the House and the Senate.
Okay.
Right, the House and the Senate is 435, and then the Senate is 435, and the House is 100. Right, you put that together. That's how you get your delegates of 535.
Wow.
Right. Okay. So now what you do is you divide that. Right. So let's just say there's 200, and my math is off. I'm not math. So if you have 271 Republicans and you have 249 Democrats, who controls?
Right.
So now when a Republican wants to pass a bill, right, he has more. He has majority.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that's so those are some of the things that we have to look at. Like people don't realize, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but people don't realize that you need 4,000 certain delegates in order to nominate the vice president, to nominate in the GOP or in the Democratic Party, right? So a lot of times we go out and vote. Yeah, all right, this is who we want to represent. But now the delegates gets a chance to say, okay, now this is our selection, right? So there are so many different levels that we gotta really make, and that's why they, in the beginning, they was just like, can Colin get all the delegates? right? So she got all the delegates. Now she's she's going to be the Democratic nominated person.
Right.
So, and then that's another thing that we got to look at, right? We got to look at some of the swing states. We got to look at some of the red states and blue states. And so how red and blue? You just look at it. Texas and Florida really votes red.
Yeah.
So that's a Republican state, right? New York, how do you know Democratic states? The largest states, right? You go New York and California.
Right.
Those usually are
Population-wise.
yeah. Right. So then you got your swing states, right? Like like Pittsburgh, like Ohio, right? South Carolina, North Carolina, like those are the swing states because they can either go either way. So when you hear those type of languages, then you realize it. And then the other thing is the electoral college, right? You got to get all 271 votes in order to be the president. So so Hillary Clinton had the popular vote.
Yeah, but she
didn't have all the 271. That's how she lost. So it's really important. So even now, when people saying, "Yo, Bill, why she's taking so long to pick vice president?" Right? She needs to pick a vice president that's going to help her win those swing states. Or maybe going to try to flip. Right? So Trump lost last year because guess what? Georgia flipped. Georgia became blue. And that's why Trump was like, nah, count them. So it's so many different layers, right? That I can go down a rabbit hole and we'd be like, yo, Billy, what the hell are you talking about? But I just want people to realize that educate yourself on the process. Educate yourself on the why. Educate yourself on what will benefit me, my community, and my family. Let's not vote for someone because they gave us money.
Because we think they gave us.
Think they gave us money.
Right. Last question I wanted to ask you too. How do you feel about the excess of cops in New York City as of lately? And I think cop training is only like 6 months. Do you think it should be longer than that?
Yeah, I think I think first of all, cops have to go through a mental background check, right? Mentally, right? Because a lot of us are dealing with, childhood trauma, right? And then what we try to do is we go into the force and we try to hide behind that to project our thoughts and things that we dealt with, right? So yes, I think that the training should be a little bit more rigorous, right? And the other question is when you talk about public safety, that's really important. Public safety is important to all of us, right? So when we have our young people who are doing things that they shouldn't do, right? We have to have someone govern that, right? And what's happening is New York City is made up of 8 million people. Let's really think about that. You got like 8 million people in New York City, right? And I think the force, and I may be wrong, so don't let this go viral and I said the wrong number, but it's probably about 50,000 police officers, right? Let's just say that, right? So I think it's important, especially with the crime rising, the rate of crime rising, the rate of asylum seekers coming into our city. I think it's really important that we try to have some type of excessive officers there to just help govern our city on the whole, right? I'm not a fan of police and schools and all of that other stuff, but I think we have to find a common ground, right, to keep our community safe, right, and then keep our young people safe also.
I mean, that wasn't a trick question because with all the cops, I feel safer.
Right.
I see so many more cops now.
Right.
And it's just on every street, but also. There was a girl that I knew, she was like a full-time lash tech, you know what I'm saying? Didn't really, keep up with her. 6 or 7 months later, she was a full-time cop. I was so confused. I was like, there's just no way you can just easily just become a cop like that. Like within the same year or like a year, like it was just too like.
Well, if you think about it,
abrupt, it just caught me off guard. Like you were a full-time lash tech and now you are a full-time cop.
But here's the other piece to it.
And that wasn't in your future plans at all. You wasn't trying to be a cop, but now you just became a cop.
Right.
And I just like it was a little weird. Like I thought with a little more time in, or like it needs to be harder to become a cop. Like it just needs to be a little bit more. Like I don't know. Like
That's a-
she became
that's
a
a-
cop too easy. Like she just became a cop too easy.
That's a
and I
civil
just like,
service
just let
job, right?
anybody
Yeah, that's a civil service job,
know
right?
it's like
But-
that. I didn't know it was like that.
Well, the whole thing is I mean, 6 months is a long time when you talk about the training. But the other thing is that, and just like what you asking, right? That's why you got to get involved with the local elections and all that, because for what you want, it's going to cost money. It's going to cost money. Okay, so now you're talking about money and time.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to push the training to a year, right? So now that's time, and there's a cost, a physical cost to that.
Yeah.
So that's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
But actually, 6 months but it's what's being trained.
Right. Okay, that's probably what it is.
It's-
Yeah.
And it's
It-
also, it's like when time
it's
goes
what's
up, money
being
goes
trained
up.
and how it's
When
being
time goes
trained.
down, money goes down.
Down.
Because when they got to put more into it, then they're gonna charge you more.
Right.
Yeah.
When if I can do it fast, they're
Right.
gonna charge you less.
Right.
So that's how they go.
Exactly. Because Chance, now here in Florida, see, when I was working in juvenile justice, I was part of rewriting the physical response or the response to dealing with juvenile, right?
Mhm.
Okay, for the whole state, right? And I'm telling you, that was a battle and a half writing that. Because of this person wants that, they don't want this, and whatever. Because now me, I was on the side of less physical force against a kid and more rehabilitation. And a lot of other people they needed more physical altercation, and because of the different programs and the different person that they meet,
Right.
when you're dealing in law enforcement and all that at the different levels, and I'll say this is the last thing, is that when a cop is face to face with a criminal of some type, a legit criminal of some type, right? That criminal is in fight or flight.
Right.
That's what they're in. They don't want to get caught, and they stop thinking. They stop thinking. They may be already caught, and that was one of my biggest concerns as far as black people. Period.
Mm-hmm.
When we deal with a cop, a lot of times I'm always questioning. It could be a wrongful shooting or whatever, but I'll use, I guess it'll be a vulgar term though, but sometimes we qualify for that because we don't cooperate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't cooperate. And when you already know what gotta happen,
Right.
you can't be fighting. You can't be making fast moves. Those are all the talks we have, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All the talks we have with our kids and so forth.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Training is the key.
Right.
Training definitely is the key, but it costs money.
Yep.
Yeah. So this has been a good show. Fantastic show. And thank you, Billy, for coming. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Chance,
Thank
for
you.
coming. This has been Beauty, Business, and Banking. And one thing that I love, love, love hearing is women and protection in the same sentence. I've heard it for the past 4 or 5 weeks. Protect women. This is the Beauty, Business, and Banking. Till next time.